Welcome to The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt, and I'm a messenger with United Network News, which is the news division of United Network. And our mission is to bring you guys the real news, what's really happening on our planet and beyond. Our network releases a ton of content each week. That includes news coverage. We've got local stories that are brought to us through our incredible field messengers. We've got in-depth news where our team does some investigative work and we reveal the truth about a lot of things that we encounter on a day-to-day basis, including what's in our food and, just the day-to-day workings on our planet. We talk about the restoration of our planet and how we're creating a new Earth. And we talk about all the crazy deep state stuff that happens too. And those are reports that come from the Global Intelligence Agency. What's really going on here on our planet in this crazy battle right now, it seems we're battling more crazy humans than dark matter and things that have been around for millions and billions of years. But we are making progress, which is what we want. For more information on who we are and what we do, you can visit our website, unitednetwork.earth. This podcast is a week in review. Because we release so much content, I like to do a weekly roundup for you guys. Not the bad stuff, the chemical stuff that you sprayed on plants, a decade ago until they got in trouble, but a roundup of the stories that really impact us and make a difference in our day-to-day lives. Because, our world is a little crazy and stuff happens and you might not catch all the content that we're putting out there. Or you may not have a subscription with us, a membership with us, or you want to share UNN with someone who doesn't have access to that information yet. You can always share this podcast and be like, hey, I think you may want to check out UNN. Here's an idea of some of the stories they talk about. Copy the link, send it over to them, and it's great. You can actually copy the podcast link, or you can go and on our website, which is unitednetwork.earth, there's a whole section for the rundown. You can copy those because those are free to anybody. And send it over to people. We're trying to spread the word. And that's one thing you can do to help us in this new year. That's our big announcement. As you guys already know, we are in 2025. And it already feels like there's a change, doesn't it? I feel like the vibe is different. I love numbers, and for me, the year 2025 just is a beautiful number, is it not? I feel like it's so much better than 2024. It's just, I don't know. It just seems like big things are going to happen. So hopefully you feel that way too, and I think it's going to happen sooner than we think. I've been noticing and I've been searching online, as I'm doing research for stories, I do a lot of searching through YouTube videos, TikTok, and a lot of times I'm just trying to get my hand on the pulse of what people are talking about and how people's viewpoints are changing. And some of the content I don't really care too much for, but they're talking about the important issues. And they're talking about it in their own style because they're influencing different groups of people. And I really believe that this is how the control structure completely falls apart. Because we know we're sovereign beings, but no one told the crazy humans that are still trying to run this planet and doing a very bad job, by the way. But I see it happening online. And that is what gives me a lot of hope. Because people are questioning everything right now, and I love it. I love it. So again, Happy New Year, everyone. I'm super glad you're with us. So let's get to it. Here's the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. All right, let's get started with the stories from our field messengers. Now, our field messengers are everyday people. You don't have to have some fancy degree. You don't have to have a YouTube channel, TikTok, whatever. What you need to do is have a passion for humanity and care about where you live, because we're looking for people to tell stories about what's happening in their community. And there's a ton of different stories you could tell, and expertise that you have that you just want to share with other people, community events that are going on. Maybe there are some more newsy kind of stories happening, or, something blocked the road and you want to report on what's going on, and how it's affecting the community that way. So many different things you could talk about. But when that little voice goes off in your head that says, this could be a field messenger report, that is the little voice that you need to trust and just start recording video with your camera. You know, you can do a voiceover later. We have a whole production team that can help you put this story together. In fact, they do all of the editing for you. We just need you to record and tell us what's going on. So let's talk about the field messenger reports for this week. We did have a short week because we didn't have news on the 1st. We gave our team a break. So we've got 6 stories instead of 9, kicking things off with Dorothy from Montana. And she talks about DIY cosmetics. I love this story. I actually took some screenshots from the video because one of my favorite things to do is try to the everyday items that, you know, we use in our house all the time. I'm trying to create a homemade version of that. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I need a little bit more practice. I'm in the process right now. I literally just ordered some of the raw ingredients online to make our own toothpaste in our house. We just switched over our laundry detergent and our dishwashing detergent, which is basically the same thing. And now I'm moving on to toothpaste, and I had to take some screenshots from Dorothy's video, her field messenger report. So, you know, we're all about health and wellness, which is great. It's all about making smarter choices, especially when it comes to the products we use. We've been talking about this a lot too, just in the more in-depth news stories. It's like, what's in your cosmetic? What's in your deodorant? What's in anything that you're putting on the lotion, anything you're putting on your body? We really need to take another look at this. And the only way to truly know is to make the stuff yourself. Let's be honest. And Dorothy shows us how to make this. She calls it body butter, which, you know, I've heard that term before. It kind of makes me laugh, but it's like a lotion, but it's thicker. You can use it on your face and your hands and your body. She says a little bit goes a long way. And it was super simple, not a ton of ingredients. In fact, I screenshotted the list of ingredients, the recipe for this. So maybe after my family and I have mastered the toothpaste, we might be switching to body butter. So if you want that recipe, make sure you check out Dorothy's story. Keza from Queensland, Australia. Oh, Keza, if you're listening, I love your attitude. It is contagious in the most beautiful way. And I just love your whole attitude on life. So she takes us to the Tambourine Superfoods Farm in Queensland, and she was giving a presentation. There was this group of people there, and they could explore everything from medicinal teas, fresh honey. I think chocolate was in there as well, which is usually my weak spot to make these unique recipes. And they even got into the honey because it was all local honey, and they showed how it was made. They took them out on the land to see, you know, where the bees were, and then how they harvested the honey. Just a really holistic view of everything, because there are so many great ways, you know, for medicinal purposes or just, you know, to consume foods, whatever you're doing, to do this in a natural way. So this group of people was really treated to a bunch of different things that they could kind of take with them and perhaps apply on their own or find, you know, similar things, you know, where they live. And it was just, you know, a really nice event. And it's just about opening people's minds to what's possible. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more events like what Keza hosted and helped with in this story. I think we're going to see that a lot more throughout the world. And I can't wait till more of this information gets out to more of the people. Really going to blow some minds, I think. All right, Amy from New Jersey shows us how to make this special marinara sauce from a Italian grandmother who loves to cook. So, you know, those kind of recipes are usually the best. And so she literally makes the marinara sauce for us. Of course, it's from scratch, a traditional recipe. And here's the thing. It has a very special ingredient that makes this a classic and possibly even better, depending on your taste. I'm not going to tell you what that ingredient is. And it's not something that stays. This is a hint. It's not something that stays in the sauce. It's something that's part of the cooking process, and then you take it out. All right, so there's a hint. Find the story this week. I believe that was on Monday, and watch Amy's story. Okay, again, on Wednesday, we had a little bit of a break. On Friday, we had a story from Tristan, who is in Iceland, and she shows us how they celebrate the new year because it's very special in Iceland. In fact, they during the daytime, like to go ice swimming, which is sometimes referred to as sea swimming. And kind of reminds me of like the polar plunge, but maybe they stay in the water a little bit longer. And we have learned that there's a lot of health benefits to that. I wouldn't stay in there for a very long time, but that whole idea of like purging your body in super cold water and then getting out, warming up. There's hot spas, I believe, or warm baths, something like that you can go in, hot saunas, and, really just enjoy the day that way. And then at nighttime, she showed us these amazing fireworks. I don't know if you guys were able to see some fireworks for New Year's Eve / New Year's Day this year. I could hear them from my house. My dog goes a little bit crazy, and to be honest, I still have younger kids, so most of my kids were in bed by the time it was midnight. We usually celebrate East Coast time because we're in San Diego on the West Coast, and my kids can't stay up that late. So I heard fireworks, and I was like, oh, that sounds nice. I could actually see some in the distance, but nothing like what we could see with Tristan's video here. So check that out. It's absolutely beautiful. Then Richard, who is in Germany, he shows us what wild boars were doing on New Year's Eve. I love this. Have you ever wondered what animals do on New Year's Eve besides my dog that gets freaked out at every little thing she hears? Well, he installed a night camera in the forest, and you can actually see, I believe these were hogs. Maybe, I don't know the specific, type of hog, but it looked like a family of hogs. So, maybe friends too, who knows, just playing around in the mud, having a good old time. So it's good to know. Oh, it says wild boar. So it was a wild boar. Okay. So it's good to know that the wild boars have fun on New Year's in addition to humans, right? Everyone should be having a good time. All right. And then Abril from Cancun, Mexico, takes us on a little bit of a ride and tells us of a tradition of canoeing in the area that she says a lot of people probably aren't familiar with, and I would agree. It's part of the culture of the Yucatan Peninsula, and it is about a tradition from the Mayan people. And what they would do is they perform this ceremony to the goddess of water and fertility. And the ceremony was them rowing in these boats from their land to an island, a nearby island. And they built a temple which was supposed to be for this goddess, so she would protect them during their travels on the water. So that's the history. And even today, there's this tradition of canoeing. They don't build the temple, but they go out on these boats and probably travel to that island, right? And it's just to, remember their heritage. And, you want these stories and these experiences to stay alive and be passed down to future generations. And they're still doing that today. Let's take a deep dive in some of the more in-depth stories that the team and I worked on this week and presented for you guys. So we did a story on menu calorie labels. Have you guys seen that when you open up a menu, when you go out to eat? My family and I don't do that a lot, but sometimes you see, oh, this dish is this many calories, right? And the whole aim behind that is to help people make healthier food choices by giving them more information. Since 2022, large restaurants and fast food chains in England have been required to display calorie counts, which is part of a broader effort to combat obesity. However, the results and the studies that have come out since are kind of mixed as far as, does this actually work? In England, the labels had little impact on calorie intake. But while in the US, because we've got those here as well, labeling led to slight reductions in calories purchased, especially in new menu items. But as it turns out, these labels aren't necessarily so accurate. Calorie counts can be off due to preparation variations and serving sizes, and different foods impact the body in different ways.
Food label calorie counts can be wrong. They don't have to be accurate by law. Shocking, right? In fact, food labels are allowed a 20% margin of error on their calorie counts. That's a huge margin of error. Imagine thinking that you're consuming 2,000 calories, but you're actually closer to 2,400. It sounds small, but in just 1 week, that accumulates to nearly 1 pound of body fat gained. So if you've been diligently counting your calories, and you've been logging every meal, and you're convinced that you're doing everything perfectly, but the scale refuses to budge, it may genuinely not be your fault at all.
This highlights the importance of focusing on food quality and individual health needs over strict calorie counting, which is a pain anyways, right? Calorie labels can help, but they're not a one-size-fits-all solution to healthier eating. Let's talk about cosmetic injectables. Do you know what I mean when I say that? I'm talking about the Botox, dermal fillers, and other non-surgical procedures. These are ways to enhance appearance, and they appeal to a broad audience from millennials to Gen Z. While their popularity is fueled by social media and accessibility, these treatments come with risks. I think we all kind of know that, right? Including severe health complications when performed by unlicensed practitioners.
I've been saying for a really long time that this female obsession with cosmetic procedures shows that we're not in a good place, and finally people are acknowledging something's wrong because women don't really look like human beings anymore, and they're calling it pillow face. Pillow face refers to this new trend where hundreds of thousands of perfectly beautiful, healthy women, in trying to become even more beautiful, even more perfect, are literally disfiguring their faces with filler. And not only does filler never really dissolve, which causes pillow face, it also messes with the lymphatic system, which can cause cancer. So even though filler doesn't improve the way we look, and it's also a risk to our lives, we women can't stop doing it. Because we've bought into the message that we women have an expiration date, and God forbid we show any signs of aging, we become completely irrelevant. So we will do anything to stop that from happening, including disfiguring our faces or risking our lives.
You know, it's really kind of sad. I was looking at some pictures online of different people over the years, and I'm not so sure all of these are actually the same individual, but let's just assume it's the same person. Holy cow. I mean, it looks like a different person. I don't even know how else to explain it. It's kind of sad. Alternatives such as microneedling, laser therapy, and lifestyle changes like staying hydrated, eating well, and protecting your skin from the dangerous UV rays can support youthful skin without all these crazy side effects. Ultimately, the choice depends on individual goals and health priorities, but confidence and self-care remain the foundation of true beauty. Cord blood banking. Let's talk about that for a little bit. This is something I have some personal experience with, which is why we're doing these stories. It's kind of a PSA. This is my personal PSA for everyone. Cord blood banking preserves the stem cell-rich blood from your baby's umbilical cord for potential future medical use. There are public banks that allow for free donation, making cord blood available to anyone in need. But if you go that route, your family won't have exclusive access. Private banks store it for your family. This is the route that we did with my kids, offering guaranteed access, but it also comes with high upfront and ongoing costs, which was a major red flag for us. These stem cells are versatile and valuable, particularly in treating certain diseases, but their benefits must be weighed against the expense. And how can you actually use these stem cells if you need it?
If you're planning on having a baby, should you bank the blood from its umbilical cord? There are lots of companies providing this service, claiming that stem cells found in umbilical cord blood could be used for transplants to save your child from genetic diseases or even cancer. So, is it worth it? Well, in most cases, probably not, and here's why. Firstly, if your newborn baby does have a disease, then its own cells can't be used to cure that disease because they'll have the same DNA and so they'll suffer from the same problems. There are special situations where it could be useful, like using the cells to help a brother or sister, but this thankfully isn't needed in the case of most newborns. The other problem is that the banking process collects about 100 millilitres of blood from the umbilical cord. And a newborn baby only has about 300 milliliters of blood. So leaving that cord blood where it is seems to improve babies' health outcomes. And perhaps the best place to bank it is inside your new kid.
So ultimately, this decision really depends on your family's health history, financial comfort, and readiness to invest in a precautionary option that might never be needed. Now, I will tell you, in our situation, that's why we did it. My brother passed away of a disease that we thought could be prevented by storing our children's umbilical cord blood. So that was our incentive. It was extremely expensive, and we ultimately couldn't really keep up with the cost. And I think sometimes these companies, that's what they're banking on, no pun intended, is that you have these exorbitant upfront costs and then monthly or yearly costs, depending on how you want to pay. And do they really care what you do after that? You've already paid them a ton of money. And I also want to know, and I couldn't find any information about this online, what do they do with the cord blood once you decide you no longer want to store it? I doubt they're just throwing that stuff away, just saying. Online shopping, let's talk about that. A little bit more uplifting, perhaps, than talking about cord blood. But we just got through the holidays, right? So let's talk about online shopping. It has revolutionized retail, but it is creating a costly challenge for businesses, and that's in the form of returns. Have you had to return anything? I had to return something for my mom yesterday because she's in town, both my parents visiting us for the holidays. And I went to the store and I just stood there for like 30 minutes and the line barely budged. And I was just like, oh man. And it was a legit return. But there is something called return fraud. And that is complicating this issue of returns. And this ranges from minor scams to sophisticated operations. Take a listen.
Last year, according to the National Retail Federation, about 14% of returns in the United States were fraudulent. And they cost retailers and brands over $100 billion alone last year.
I'm sorry, 14% of all returns were fraudulent?
Yep. And fraudulent, really breaks down into, the common things that we see. About that same number, by the way, in our data set we see. And really the things are empty box returns, especially with higher priced goods. It's, hey, somebody buys a $500 cookware set and returns an empty box. We see that just about every day. Or, hey, the other thing is return policy abuse. It's not that there's a huge majority of people who are bad consumers, but there's enough of these people who are bad consumers and they purchase and return at such high rate.
Yeah, so just don't be that person, okay? Moral of the story. To cut losses, businesses are leveraging AI to personalize fees, reduce bracketing, and streamline processes. Innovations like fitting room booking services can help lower return rates. That's a thing. Look it up. Ultimately, retailers must balance customer satisfaction with profitability, of course, seeking solutions that address both consumer convenience and operational efficiency. All right. Children's reading habits. This was another personal story. It was based on a headline that I saw, but this is something that I'm dealing with my younger girls, my twin girls in my house. So reading for fun has taken a backseat for many kids. This is what the studies are showing us. With digital entertainment, busy schedules, and limited access to engaging books contributing to the decline. Although standardized reading scores have remained pretty much stable, the drop in recreational reading has raised concerns about critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And this is what we're experiencing in our own house. So I homeschool my younger two girls, and they're not doing a lot of recreational reading. And I was like, well, is that a bad thing? And the more I looked into it, I was like, there are so many different ways they can learn. So because we're homeschooling, we're already doing something very different. And I have learned, listen, the more you get them off the traditional way that most schools teach, the more creative they are, the more independent they are. So doing, maybe they're not reading a book in their free time, but they're doing hands-on activities. They might be on an educational app or just real-world experiences.
Kids are not out living life. They're confined in these four walls. They're hanging out with the same people, reading the same things. How are they going to come up with this great ideas? One. And two, we are constantly moving from one thing to the other. They're constantly interrupted. There is no time to linger and let this thought sort of sit and click into place and then come with those aha moments. And then we wonder why they don't like writing or why they're not creative. Well, it's because we're creating the wrong conditions.
By embracing varied learning styles, we can inspire curiosity, foster skill development, and show that learning is an adventure beyond the pages of a book. So reading is good, but there's other things out there too. Why are we so concerned about this? And our final report is about healthcare in Australia. So like with many countries, there is public and private services. They are finding that a lot more people are going with the private services, especially younger people. Each come with distinct advantages and challenges. The public system, which they call Medicare, ensures access to essential care, but struggles with long wait times and rising out-of-pocket costs. Meanwhile, you've got private healthcare. They provide more flexibility and additional services, but it comes with higher premiums. Both systems face issues like staff shortages, an aging population, and geographical disparities in rural areas.
Planned surgery wait times in public hospitals are the longest they've ever been, an Australian Medical Association AMA report has found. Patients are, on average, waiting twice as long for planned surgeries than they were 20 years ago, according to the report. It also says Category 2 surgeries, which include heart valve replacements and operations on congenital cardiac defects and fractures that won't heal on time, being performed late more than ever before. These surgeries are essential and urgent. They are not elective or cosmetic, and every day of waiting can bring serious pain and increased risks to patients, AMA President Professor Steve Robson said. Australians are now waiting almost twice as long on average for planned surgery than they were 20 years ago, which is unacceptable.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that our healthcare systems around the world have failed us, and we need new systems in place that actually treat issues, that solve issues, that cure disease. And that's really not what we have right now. We have really poor healthcare, and I believe that is changing in the very near future. All right, it's time for some updates from the Global Intelligence Agency, which is headed up by Kimberly Goguen. She is also ground command for our planet. If you are new to UNN, or perhaps you've never heard of us before, and this is the first time you're hearing anything about the Global Intelligence Agency, this agency oversees all others. Now, it has gone through a major transformation over the last 10 years because most of us that are in the know realize that three-letter agencies and the like are not out for the betterment of humanity. So that's why the GIA had to be reformed. And moving forward, looks a lot different than it did in the past. But this is how Kim has access to all of this information, because she has the system to be able to see what all these agencies are doing. So let's talk about the crazy deep state people. We're also going to combine this with some things that are going on within our planet because they kind of play one off of another. So we know the crazy deep state loves their celestial alignments. They love new moons, and Monday was a great day for them in the sense that it was, in their mind, an opportunity for something to happen. Monday was a new moon, and I guess it was also the second new moon, which didn't know that was possible. But it's also considered a black moon. So, they're doubly excited about this. The secret space program was expecting something really big to happen. I guess they found some artifacts that they got all excited about. They're trying to do some resets. They want control of the political system. They want control of the financial system. And they are in a panic right now because the secret space program is basically working with the Trump folks, okay? And so because they want political power, that is the candidate that has been selected to now kind of run the country, but not run the United States, because we know presidents don't run anything. They are puppets. But they want to get the orange guy back in. And through whatever means. Who knows what happens with the selection, but he's now their next choice. But they're in a panic because they have made a lot of promises to a lot of people. Because when Trump was in office before, there was large amounts of money that were distributed to various countries. And that was not done by Trump. That was actually done by Kim. And Kim does and has explained that many times. I believe she explained it on Monday's report, perhaps on Friday's report too. She's always saying, listen, you guys want Trump back in there, but he did not do anything. Any money that came out comes from the Office of the Guardian, Ground Command, and that's one of Kim's titles. So she has to release those funds. But these guys are in a panic because they have made so many different promises because their fake president is going to get in there and do something. And by the way, if Kamala was doing it, fake president too. Like, we are an equal party offender here. It doesn't matter if you've got a D behind your name or an R behind your name or an I behind your name. Does not matter. Whatever parties are in your country doesn't matter. They're all puppets, okay? This is just the front person, so they could try to control the masses. And so they're in a panic right now. They've got an inauguration that apparently is going to happen on the 20th, but there's even talk of postponing that. I don't know how you do that. That's against the Constitution. So they've made a lot of promises that they can't fulfill because despite all these alignments and new moons and artifacts and crazy stuff they're trying to do and bring in the neither world and all this craziness, they still don't have any control. Any control they have is just perceived control from the masses and from the media. It's not real control. So Kim spent a bunch of time this week talking about declarations of war because the deep state believes, because this is how it was done in the past, that if they put together these wars, okay, which are proxy wars, it's not real. Like, real people die and real people are harmed, but there's no real purpose behind it other than prior to now, it used to give them a bunch of money. Okay, it used to impact these artificial intelligence systems and spit out a bunch of money for them. And that's how a lot of them got paid. There was this dark formula to the whole process. Well, they have been, if you haven't noticed, trying to start wars for a while now and try to keep wars happening and everything in Gaza and Ukraine, Russia, and they're not getting any money. So they're in a bit of a pickle. I want to play a soundbite here. This is Kim on Monday's report. She's talking about declarations of war and also how this is related to a double-sided obelisk, an etherical one, so you can't actually see it, but that actually went through our planet, so through planet Earth. If you don't know what an obelisk is, just do a quick search for it online. The Washington Monument, and there's many, I believe there's the Vatican has one. Oh gosh, England, I'm sure, has one, but it's that weird pointy statue thing. It was in Egypt as well. In the US, it's got like two red glowing eyes at night. That's an obelisk. So picture that little pointy thing on each side. It's etherical, again, that running through the earth, which, fun fact, since we're talking about obelisks, watch any kind of U.S. television show, especially the ones related to government, spies, even lawyers. I mean, they do it all the time. If something is taking place in Washington, D.C., they will always show that obelisk, the Washington Monument. And we know what that is, right? Because these people are perverts. But they, is it tied to what we're about to talk about with this obelisk that went through Earth? I'm not sure. I think they're just perverts and disgusting. But watch for that because it's interesting. Okay, so here's Kim, again, talking about declarations of war and how this relates to this obelisk that was found going through Earth.
So a very long time ago, we've talked about a global martial law declaration. That happened only about 16,000 and a half years ago, which in our time is not really a long time. However, there was another war declaration prior to even the 250,000 year ago Atlantean War, as you call it in our history. This war declaration was declared, I guess you would say, at the time that we moved into the Dark Ages, right about then. So it was many millions of years ago, and a declaration of war on this level happens by covenant, I guess, and you could also call it by planting, for lack of a better term, a ghost flag. So sometimes when the military, US or otherwise, goes to another country, land, the UK did it a lot too over the last few hundred years, where they plant a ghost flag. It's like where they walk into your country, they declare they won, they plant their flag, and then they leave, and all of a sudden, wow, you're the Commonwealth, or wow, you're now a territory of the United States. So that's kind of on a military level what is done, but I'm going to pull up the whiteboard for a second here and kind of explain to you what it looks like on a universal level, because this does trickle down into why everybody's been ringing the phone off the hook here for the last couple of days. Okay, so we know about Earth. Let's say this is Earth, me and my terrible writing. So this is Earth. And a long time ago, the original attempted takeover of Earth was done with, for lack of a better term, we could call this thing a double-sided obelisk. So it went straight through Earth, came out the other side, and this was not the only one. This then disrupted Earth's energy cycle and allowed for them to use this object that was etherical and going through Earth to then disrupt the gateway of the universe. Now, Earth was at one point the only gateway left to the Netherworld or to the Omegaverse or through the hologram. That was kind of Earth. And it allowed for the creation of a second central point, which was, let's just say, down here in what we call the zero density. We know Earth is in the third density. And then we have 1 and 2, and we have the same thing, on downward into a lower astral or to the anti-source section. And then we also have a netherworld on the other side that has all of the same mimicking and mirroring. Well, the reason why it was moved to a different location was so that both the dark and the light would have some control and a passageway through to all the universes. With Earth being of source exclusively, and you could say it was a source absolute sphere or a source keystone, that was not entirely possible. So by putting this in this place, it then created a disruption in that gateway. And it allowed for, in part, there were many other mechanisms tied to this, but it allowed for, in part, a transfer over to a different location in the Alpha Omegaverse. Now, when this happened, there was a problem with the anchoring of source, anti-source, and neutral source at the time. So they created these machines, which were located in 3 places on Earth. One was in Romania, and one was in California. I'll leave it at that because they're going to go hunt these things. They're not there anymore, so it doesn't really matter. And the other one was in Antarctica. So these were the 3 locations that would anchor source, anti-source, and neutral source. They did this by creating what's called an absolute sphere. That's what I call it. Now, it's an absolute because it contains a little piece of source, anti-source, and neutral source in each one. It also is a piece and a portion of that positive zero, or the place of everything, both in source, in the place of nothing, and anti-source and neutral source. So at the time, these were the only anchors for Earth, to source, anti-source, and neutral source, which it was for a long time. Now, it turns out that the way alleys started mimicking and the neither world started mimicking. Now, originally it was done for a positive reason. It was done by source, anti-source, and neutral source to maintain their presence on Earth, now that Earth technically wasn't a keystone for a time. The next reason why they created them, I guess you would say, is to ensure that we, or source, did not lose Earth. On the flip side of it, it was also used for a negative purpose, because those of the neither world and alleys actually managed to get a hold of some of those keystones. And the keystones in this case that were located within these machines were also recorders. They also held the original DNA blueprint of the universe. Getting a hold of one of these keystones, putting them in a different kind of machine, is what allowed alleys to mimic creation and allowed for the neither world to mimic creation. And this was all done at the same time, you could say, that this large spear, or double-sided obelisk, was placed in Earth. Now, the double-sided obelisk was done between, I know this is a shocker, Marduk, Enki, and Enlil, everybody agreed, isn't that lovely? And of course the Black Magician from over in the neither world. Now, just as a matter of fact, the Black Magician over in the neither world was a rotating position. It's kind of like Marduk. Marduk literally means Lord of the Seas, or current seas. The Black Magician also was a title. It was decided that usually one of the 72 Dukes of Hell, so to speak, as you know them, and you can look that up on the internet, would hold from time to time. And I guess it's whomever was the worst. I'm not sure how the picking process happened, or if it was something done with anti-source, but that was typically who would hold that position. It would be one of the Dukes of Hell, one of the 72, and then that being would then rule over all the others for a time. I don't know much more than that as far as like how often did they rotate? You know, is there a selection process? Is there an induction process for this? I would say to some degree there probably would have been some oversight there, just as there was over this declaration of war. I would say that the positions on both sides probably also had some kind of a declaration or an oversight committee of some sort, other than source, anti-source, and neutral source. But at this time, the only one I am aware of is the Council of Nine. So once this declaration of war happened, which is this giant spear, there's not anything else. There's not a covenant or an agreement initially that would mark this, other than the giant so-called ghost flag or stab in the earth took place by agreement between these folks here. Because there was a declaration of war in place, you know, as we lost our moon 18,000 years ago, Marduk brought a different moon, which we now know as a space station that is hanging out in the sky. It doesn't really function anymore like that. It's just kind of a big rock that moves the water around. But this is the reason why we had martial law. You know, we had war after war after war, because there was always that ongoing war that was happening that was far greater than anything the Pentagon could do or global headquarters could do on this planet. And this is in part why we almost saw this invasion. So now it's all becoming very clear. Now, at certain times in the year would be optimal if the balance, in their mind there on the nether world, their ability to influence this planet waned. If Marduk, Enki, and Enlil, none of which we have anymore, their influences would wane, other than, their consciousness that they transferred into AI systems and whatnot for a time. Once all of that waned, then, now they had the right to come in due to this declaration of war and cause chaos here. Now, the Black Sun was very excited about this, and so were the SSP and the Trump operatives and everybody. They were even talking about there was a touchdown of the Pleiadians. I heard that one. We don't have any anti-Pleiadians anymore, which are the only Pleiadians they know. They know about the Targethians. They know about the Artemis folk, the reptilians, as you would call them. And nobody's here. There's nobody in our peripheral. There's nobody in Earth's atmosphere. There's nobody here. I've even double-checked, and the enforcer has double-checked. There's nobody hidden in between a plane, a pocket of time. Nobody has come. And they said that this allegedly occurred on the 12/21. I don't know. I think they're lying to everybody so that they can continue their own lie. So let's continue on to what's happening right now. We all know about the waning Allie's AI. We really don't have much of that left in the multiverse anymore. It's not mimicking anymore. Ever since we pulled that, we pulled the keystones and we pulled the machines. So since that took place, we're not seeing anything new from Allie's. There might be a few little things left over from days have gone by, but really not a whole lot of influence on this planet anymore. We're not seeing much of anything since we saw the crazy scientists come out of the nether world. We did have a couple more pockets of scientists. We found one in Jonestown, Guyana. So that was taken care of recently as well. But as far as war declarations, this is really important to understand. Because it's affecting what's going to happen here in the coming year with governments and militaries and a lot of people. So the SSP thinks they're really, really smart. This secret space program folk. They think they're really, really smart. And these are your Trump operatives as well. They think that they have knowledge that no one else has. They think they have information that no one else has. And it's old. Mostly really, really old. Now, they didn't keep up with the times when they had the chance, meaning they had access to the archivists. They had access to the information in the Hall of Records. They had access to expired agreements. And these people just kind of chose to ignore all of it because they just didn't care for whatever reason. Even the Pentagon, there were many documents, as we've talked about before, that were delivered to the Pentagon at a time when they were still trying to achieve balance. I'm not saying I'm a big fan of archivists anymore, but that's your Targethians, your Pleiadians, or anti-Pleiadians, so to speak. Do they... I don't know. They ignored basically all of the expired agreements. Now, another one that they also happened to ignore was the fact that we don't have the declaration of war, quote unquote, spear. I don't know what else to call it. A giant dual-sided obelisk crystal-looking thing that went straight through Earth and also was in the Kali chakra of the universe and a few other locations. As they declared war against basically source and all of creation. Kind of bold, don't you think? But they did. And this leads to the declaration of global martial law by Marduk. So as long as the war was on, we would have global martial law. Now, global martial law expired couple years ago. And then we kind of did this little tit for tat with the military for a while, tried to do a redeclaration of war, where basically we declared war against them. And nobody really cared. So we got rid of it. There was also a number of other agreements that expired, which are relative to this. Number one, after Marduk passed away in 2016, I would say the position of ground commander went to me. So here I am. Yep, that's also a title I hold, which means I am the highest ranking military, quote unquote, off-world military, on-world military ranking person on this planet. That used to be Marduk. It is no longer Marduk because Marduk is no longer with us. So it's me. And I have held that position for 8 years or so now. And these people keep wondering why they're not getting any money for war. Well, I just decided maybe I don't want to do that anymore. Now that the full declaration of war is over, meaning between their bosses on their side, because I don't really care about and I know this is not an arrogant statement, so please don't take it this way, but the secret space program folks do bad things. They do. Are they capable of doing bad things without bad others behind them? Somewhat. Are they capable of creating world war without anything behind them? No. Are they capable of doing all the lovely things that they promised everybody? No, they're not. So yes, they can start a few things here and there. Yes, they can cause some harm here and there, but without the declaration of war, no one is going to fund their war.
Wamp, wamp, wamp. Sorry if I busted your bubble. Any of the deep state people that might be listening to this podcast episode. But it's not happening. Sorry. You A for effort, I guess, even though you're hurting humanity in the process. But doesn't matter what you do, you will not be successful. This is not how you get money anymore from starting wars. Not a thing. But if they didn't hear Monday's report, they're going to get another dose of it from Kim on Friday. So again, no report on Wednesday because that was the first. On Friday, we did something a little bit different. So Kim had a quick little update, but it was also a live Q&A, which I have a feeling we might be doing more of these. We haven't really talked about this as a group behind the scenes, but you guys seem to like this. And it's nice because it's interactive. But Kim spent a lot of time talking about power and authority on this planet. Basically, how did we get to this point? So if we say you can't, you can't get money this way anymore. You can't declare war and throughout these pandemics and expect money to just fall into your lap. Well, that's not good enough for the deep state. So we have to back it up. And we have to talk about why. What is the structure of our planet anymore? Why does this system not work anymore? And we have talked about this in the past, but sometimes, guys, you got to put this in a nice, neat little package for these crazy humans because they just don't get it. Okay. Before I play that soundbite, a couple other things I wanted to mention that I thought were kind of interesting. So as far as things that are happening right now on this planet, she said there were some rituals going on at the Pentagon. And when I say rituals, I'm not talking about, lighting your Christmas tree and stuff like that. I'm talking about deep, dark stuff. And what she said is there were these men. Now keep in mind, the Pentagon, if you're at that level, you're not usually doing rituals, satanic rituals, and trying to conjure demons and stuff like that. That's not really your thing. But apparently, they are pretty desperate. And so somehow they convinced these people at the Pentagon to wear skirts. What kind of skirts? What colors? I'm not quite sure. And do some ceremonies around a bonfire. Very interesting. So just kind of shows you where things are at. The SSP is still telling everyone that these Trump contracts are going to come out and he's going to give you all this money. We've already talked about the fact that will never, ever happen. But they keep trying to extend the deadline, which has something to do with them trying to extend the inauguration deadline as well. If that actually becomes a thing, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about that. If you've noticed, they're also trying to install another pandemic, all this fear mongering. You know, they put these things in the headlines so you believe that H1N1 bird flu or whatever they're promoting right now is, gonna just, come and ruin our society. They put these in the headlines because they want you to manifest it. So when you see that kind of stuff, just look the other way. Just roll your eyes like I do, because they're not going to be successful. They're also trying to, again, install this global martial law. Apparently, they didn't hear Kim's message on Monday. But here's the thing they have to understand. Nothing is set to happen automatically. So let's say they create another war. Let's say they had the funds to do that, which they don't. But if they do that, it's not just going to, first of all, the system behind it that would spit out money in the past doesn't even exist anymore. Okay, but let's just assume that it did. There would still have to be someone who is ground command who had the final say and would have to, let's just say, push a button. I'm sure it wasn't that, to approve the money coming out. So these people are so dead wrong on so many different levels, but it's like if they're getting the information, it's like they don't want to believe it. So I just want to do a really quick update of the crazy stuff they're doing now, including the men in skirts doing ceremonies around a bonfire. All right, now let's play this clip from Kim. I would recommend that you go back because this is a long talk, plus there's Q&A at the end. If you really want to have a very good understanding of how things were set up on our planet and how things are set up now from a political, financial perspective, I really suggest that you go back and you watch Friday's live Q&A. Because the first part, she gets out her whiteboard, she talks all about it. And it's interesting. She's not just talking to the people. It's important that you guys understand this. If you've been watching UNN for a while, you already know this stuff. So it's a little bit, just reinforcing stuff we already know. But if you're new, take some notes because this is mind-blowing stuff. So here's Kim explaining how the war, the big war that went on for thousands of years, is now over. There is no global martial law anymore. No money is going to spit out for these people, no matter what they do. And there's also information in here for us about where do we go now. It talks a little bit about care. It talks a little bit more about her role as guardian and what she does. And it's a little bit funny at some point because, Kim was given this role by the Council of Nine. And it's not something she really requested, but she's in it and she's doing a really good job. But she talks about the fact that someday we'll get to this point where we don't need a guardian at all. We need this transition because there's so many people that have no idea what you and I are talking about right now. So we need a transition that will work because systems would be in complete disarray if we didn't. But the goal is to not have a guardian. Kim needs to be the last guardian on this planet because we need to learn how to take back our sovereignty, and to be able to connect directly with source and to get our energy and essence and everything directly from source and not have to deal with all this other crazy stuff. But it's going to take some time. So Kim talks about her role. She talks about care and how she's done with these crazy people. Like they're doing the same thing over and over. And we're not doing that in 2025, guys. Sorry, not happening.
Where do we stand now in the world? So as long as there's even a potential for anything to happen, you're stuck with me as ground commander. I still talk to the Council of Nine. They are doing other jobs at this moment. They're no longer really needed here to do these jobs. Should they ever need to come back, they can come back, and they listen only and exclusively to source by any section or another. Okay? There is no wavering on their part. They are not going to listen to you and what you want as far as the SSP and the deep state are concerned. They could care less about a president, orange or otherwise. They could care less. So you, meaning the deep state, playing political games is not going to get us anywhere. So now, Ground Commander, I don't see any purpose behind declaring global martial law at this moment in time. There is no real threat. The deep state, albeit annoying and causing problems in the world, is not a severe enough threat to make that happen. And if I did declare it, who is coming? You people aren't coming. So everybody else, like the enforcer and others that have come here to help heal and clean the planet and help humanity and do all the things that they do from time to time, all of those people, they're standing at the ready should we ever need them to fight the real war, because it's in their best interest as well as our best interest. It really has nothing to do with a White House or a political structure or money, because nobody uses money, only let's just say, non-aware beings, and we've been beaten to that point as humans. That won't be the case for much longer, are needing some kind of a system to trade with, which, it's probably going to be a few years that we're going to need that. I'm thinking probably about 10 years. So as Ground Commander, this is that part of that job. That part of that job is to make sure that Earth remains in a safe place. It remains inhabited by the humans per agreements and covenants that are now in place to usher in the golden age. So one hat, I'm playing security, you could say. So my job is security for covenants that are now in place on this planet, covenants that were initiated by Source, changes that are going on in the multiverse as far as creation and how that actually happens. This is my job. Yes, of course I care about people a lot. Do I care if a market crashes? No. Is that going to make me go, oh my God, I must fund the market. I must fund the government to save it. I use that voice because it kind of sounds like Pinky in the Brain to me, because that's what these people are ridiculous over there. So, oh my God, I must jump. I'm going to jump and do everything they say to prevent a market crash. Well, what happens when the market crashes but the financial system doesn't crash? What happens when banks no longer make money but the financial system doesn't crash? So now we can implement our own stuff. Their credibility by February is going to be pretty well shot. They're waiting for the inauguration. They might try to delay it for some reason or another. They're trying to fake it till they make it, mainly because they can't fulfill their promises. So is the military going to step in and save you? No. I don't care what country you're in. It's never going to happen. Is the U.S. military going to come in and save you? No. They can't even save themselves. They're broke. We got calls today from the Defense National Intelligence wondering if we're going to fix it. No, it looks to me like you have a problem. You have some people way down the food chain, as I just explained, that you're listening to. And you'd like to listen to those people. And I'm sure it's those people that told you to dance around a bonfire in circles too, and look ridiculous with nothing that actually happened. As long as they're listening to those people, I pretty much think at this point in time, as it relates to Earth security, we're doing a bang up job over here all by ourselves. Don't really need you anyway, so we'll let you just burn out. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. As far as people are concerned, remember militaries not militaries, police forces are usually provincial. In a lot of countries, they're very corrupt anyway. But you do have a lot of good people that are maybe ex-veterans or really believed in their patriotism for their country. They are well aware of how security actually works and functions, and maybe they'd like to participate in protecting the humans from those people. Now, this is where this comes in, and I will repeat what I said earlier. If the people are together and stop worrying about oh, I'm for this political person, I'm for that political person, and the military's corrupt, and let's watch 9,000 videos and watch them keep planting apple seeds in your head so that you never get any oranges. Why don't you just keep doing that over and over and over again so that you can't unite? We are completely capable as a race, as the human race, of taking care and securing ourselves on this level as it relates to human threats against us. We actually can do it. Do we need anyone's help? No. You would be surprised at your personal capabilities. Case in point, women whose babies are under a car and they are strong enough to pick up the car and pull their child to safety. Well, at that point, but you understand what I'm saying. Men and women, you're both capable of doing this. He, she, they, you're all capable of doing this. You can do this. We are worried about the things you know nothing about, but we will still continue to the best of our ability, like we have done many times over and over and over again, to stop them from creating a stupid proxy war that is not going to yield them a result, because everything everywhere knows the war for this planet is over. Everyone that's left, every being, and everywhere, every AI knows the war is over. The debt calls have already started. They've been going on for months. It is over. So if you want to do things the proxy war people way, go do them that way and just leave us alone, because we don't need you. We clearly don't need you. If you're supposed to be the secret space force, where the heck are you when there's an actual threat? Oh, that's right. You're pitch hitting for the wrong team. You have no desire to fix this country. You have no desire to fix any country. You could care less if you're trying to kill the humans on their behalf. For what? Hello, people. You're just slaves, just like all the rest of us. You put your pants on every morning just like we do, and you obviously don't know how to fight a real war. Or if you did, your people would have been here by now, and you would have also been dead, so no one would be watching this. Okay, so I hope this explains the position of ground commander, who it was for a long, long time, who it is now, and what it actually means to be in this position. Now, when I say this, they're going to want to be ground commander. Well, you need to call the Council of 9, and you need to get in touch with the Universal Council and see if anybody wants to appoint you as ground commander of Earth. And I can guarantee you, since you're pitch hitting against every single one of them, no one is going to say yes, even if you did have a line to reach them. So there's that. There's your military and intelligence. That's 2 key points in global control, which the SSP works really hard at trying to control with global headquarters and Langley 5. But this is why I know there will be no contracts actually coming out on this day or that day or 10 years from now or 6 months from now. And doesn't really matter who tries to do anything. I think it's better to rely on people to feed other people, because historically speaking, and I've watched this happen, in times of despair or difficult times, people support people. And very rarely does the government come to those people's aid. So you have a new guardian, that would be me. Fairly new in relation to 16,000 years. Okay. So I've been the guardian for quite a while now. Not quite a decade, but well, I guess you could say. All right. So that's me again, still me. And if they'd like to dispute this, political control situation they've got going on here, feel free again to call the Council of Nine and Source and whoever else you got to call and dial in and see if they'd like to get back on your killing program. Let me know how that works out for you. I have instructions otherwise. There are covenants in place that prevent that. So, okay. So governments. Every contract and covenant I have had to keep governments alive is expired. I've been telling everybody this for a long time. Tom Melville has been telling everybody this for a long time. So I'm not sure where the confusion is. So just because you put an orange guy in an office doesn't mean I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. Years have passed. A lot of work has been done. We're not at war. I don't need a nanny anymore. I don't need that kind of guardian. Maybe you've been fired by the foster system, so to speak, for feeding your child a hot dog once every 3 days just to keep it alive. Therefore, I don't feel the need to send you that $1,000 a month anymore. In this case, trillions of dollars a year. So I'm not sure what purpose you serve in my life, because see, as guardian, I don't think the way you do. I want a guardian that is going to help humanity learn who they really are. I want a guardian that is going to actually provide a service for humanity. I don't want a guardian, I'm not the guardian that is going to provide humans with a disease, but I want to provide them with a cure. So I'm not sure where governments, and seriously, I mean, I know the SSP has now become the shadow government in many places, and they think that's political control, and therefore they're entitled to have me money whenever they feel like it. But I don't need to do that. I don't care. There's no war on the other side. You are not the asset management group anymore. So I'm not sure why you think that this is important to do. I don't know, maybe you are, trying to be the controller of Earth, but I don't think you really even understand what that means. I think you think that means if I control governments and the financial system and military intelligence, I can control the world. Well, not really, because there's some other positions that have always been in place that are higher than that. The Guardian has decided, as Guardian, that I need a lot of help to help 8 billion people. So we created an international sovereign organization under an unknown country, which is also me. No matter how many times you try to think that it's going to revert back to you people and hack the crap out of it for the last 3 days, it hasn't gone anywhere, has it? No, it has not. Which gives me political control and the ability through the Hall of Records, which I also control, to make a new organization we call CARE. And many people, many good, smart, intelligent people are a part of CARE, who actually care. Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. Well, what a concept. Sure, do they want to have money for their own family, to feed their own family? Yes, but they do not need 90% of hundreds of billions of dollars to do it. Nobody could spend that kind of money in a lifetime. And they know better. They know that they would get kicked out of here if that happened. Your old guardian didn't care. The new one cares. As far as political systems are concerned, we will just have to create our own. And by that, we're not recreating tyrants. The oppressed are not going to become the oppressor. If you are going to regulate things like food and other things, because there's going to take a long time before you're going to get people to understand there are alternatives, and to test those alternatives in real life, not listen to somebody on YouTube who said that this is a cure, because it might not be, and it might not work for everyone, and it might not work for every type of cancer, as an example. It might not even be a preventative for certain people with certain blood types and certain genetic history. You don't know that unless it's tested through a care facility. You don't know. Putting out YouTube videos is not health and wellness. It's not. Copying other people's TikTok videos is even worse. We need to have a structure that helps people. And that's what CARE is going to do. We need teams of actual biological scientists that are going to test the fact that X cures Y. And that's the stuff we're going to fund. We are not going to fund you and your disease department on the one side and your drug manufacturers that are just make you take a pill every day or every month or whatever it is, or an allergy shot or a vaccine or anything else, because it doesn't work. If it worked, we would have no cancer. Because it's not meant to work, and I just explained to you why it's not meant to work. And this is your political structure of planet Earth. And then they have your panels of experts that will tell you, eat this, diet this way, shoot this and whatever, and you're going to be all better for now. And then just come every week and get your pill and your shot and your whatever else, and you're going to be all fine. Well, we're not fine. We never had a disease we call autism until the last few decades. It didn't exist. Now it exists. Now, deep state, can you answer me why it exists? Can you answer that question? I know why it exists. And I know that you specifically give things to newborns to make it exist. Now, don't you? And some people can overcome it and some people can't. And now we have autism, and we have other things like on the spectrum, on kind of leaning towards autism, but not quite autism. And people are just finding out now in their 40s and 50s and 60 years old that that's who they are. And then you give people other drugs and you give them quote unquote chemo brain, and it's hard for them to pull up from that. And it takes a lot of diet and changes and whatever to get back to normal. But are they ever really normal completely with what you do? That's why I could care less. And I'm pretty well done with the whiteboard. But that's why I could care less about funding governments. That's why we created CARE. CARE is so much more than you could ever possibly imagine, and the responsibility that is laying on your shoulders as being a part of CARE is huge. But you know what? There's a place for everybody at CARE. So maybe you're not a scientist, and maybe you can't research, and you don't have the facilities, and if you do, maybe that'll be the place for you. And maybe it's not for you. Maybe you just want to make sure that people can get an essential card and sign up. Maybe you just need to, maybe you have time to answer your phone for 4 hours a day because you're raising a family, and you can say, yes, you can go to this website. Let me walk you through it so you can get your essentials card, or you can get your assistance you need for wage disparity, your essentials, your assurance, whatever it is that CARE is providing. Maybe you're just that person that has time to do that a couple hours a day while your kid's taking a nap. Maybe that's the case. But whatever it is, again, when the people unite, put aside your political differences, your color of your skin concepts you got from your parents or wherever it came from, just put it all aside and just remember, if the people unite, we wouldn't have a deep state. And you're going to have to do that. And I believe that year is this year. You're going to have to do it, whether you like it or not. So please stop arguing over ridiculousness and constitutions and everything else, because it doesn't look like you're going to have a constitution or a government anytime soon. This is their choice. They have chosen not to work under the new guardian's terms and conditions for payment. And I will not let it happen ever again.
Mic drop. Boom. Isn't that a way to start 2025? Kim did say that she's not expecting things to, just completely change overnight. She said it could be a rough January and even into February, mid to late February, but we have to stay tough. The stuff that we have been talking about, like they've got nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. They are banking everything on Trump, which is going to fall completely short. And again, that has nothing to do with political preference. I could care less, okay? This has to do with the structure of our planet and how money or currency from source is now generated. It has nothing to do with wars. They are never going to get that money, ever. So once these promises fall flat, what's going to happen to governments? And as Kim has talked about, don't freak out about that, okay? What needs to happen is going to happen because we have source. We have the creator of the universe on our side. Some people call him God, whatever you want to call that is on our side. We are celestial beings. Humans are celestial beings, and we are being reunited with our creator right now. So don't fear what's about to happen. This is a time really of rejoicing. We need all hands on deck. So if you're like, yeah, 2025 is the year, understand there are responsibilities that come with that. It's not just going to happen overnight. We need everybody to help in different ways. Maybe some people will be directly associated with care, but whatever it is, care for your community, whatever that looks like. Be prepared to do that because everything is going to change for the better. On that note, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to today's episode, guys. If you want more information about us, go to our website, unitednetwork.earth. You can get on-demand access to all of our content there if you sign up. That includes complete news updates, our New Earth interviews. Oh, quick note about that. We had a meeting yesterday, and I believe the first episode for New Earth, because, we're reformatting that was originally part of the news, and then we decided to make a whole show out of that. I believe it is coming out in January. I don't want to provide an exact date, maybe the 3rd or the 4th week in January, but I've already planned out some episodes. So that is on its way back. We're going to start with 1 episode a week and then build from there. Hopefully we'll get up to 3 episodes, but might take a little bit of time. So if you want to see more New Earth content, you can go on our app. There's a ton of interviews there. And again, we're releasing the new show coming up here soon this month. You get access to all of our global intelligence agency reports and anything we release that's about restoration. You can also follow us on Telegram. If you want links to any of our social, go to our website, scroll down to the bottom, and all the links are right there. So this has been The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.